All right, it's Wednesday night. It's time for the Panther-Lair Show live on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. It's where we always like to get together and hang out every Wednesday night, 8:30 to 9:30. And it's been a long time. I mean, we had this off week, but we still had the Panther-Lair Show. We still got together last Wednesday. I guess we didn't hang out on Saturday. We didn't have a post-game show because there was no game to go live after. But I feel like we haven't done this in a while. Maybe it's just because we had the Kenny Pickett show earlier today, and we actually took last week off on the Kenny Pickett show, and so it felt like there was a bit of a break there. It felt like we were getting back into the routine of things after a week off. But I don't know. It's just it's been a long time since that Georgia Tech game. It's been a week and a half since that game, and just sort of counting down the days here until this game on Saturday at Virginia Tech. Because I don't know what's going to happen in Blacksburg. I know what can happen, the good and the bad. I know the potential that's there for this game and for this team. And I know that week by week, they're going to have the opportunity to do something. They're going to have the opportunity to accomplish something. And every week that moves along, those opportunities are going to be greater, assuming they continue to capitalize on those opportunities, assuming they continue to accomplish things. And I think what I've wrestled with over the last week, and it's probably a lot of what you've wrestled with over the last week, I imagine, and probably longer, and you'll probably continue to wrestle with it more and more as time goes on, depending on how the rest of this season goes. I keep wrestling with this idea of how much to buy in on this team, on where I'm sold on this team, where I'm questioning this team, what I believe this team can accomplish. Because we talked last week. I mean, it's all out there. It's all laid out for this team, and it's laid out for a few teams. It's laid out for Virginia Tech too. But it's all out there for Pitt. They're playing pretty well. They had the loss to Western Michigan. You're not going to hide from that. You're not going to erase that. That's not going to go anywhere. But on the whole, and we talked about it last week. We talked about how offense creates optimism. Offense gets people fired up. Offense makes people believe that if they went through these first 5 games, if they came out of the first 5 games with the number one scoring defense in the country, and they were sitting at 4-1 with a loss to Western Michigan and just sort of a dominating defensive performance against Georgia Tech. And again, they had the number one scoring defense in the country. I don't think we'd be having the same conversations that we're having right now. Well, we're talking about Pitt, and I mean, we just started our conversation here tonight, but I don't think we'd be having the same conversations that we've been having for the last week and a half. I don't think we'd be seeing the same sort of national and regional, if not local, respect and sort of hype building for Pitt that we've seen. I don't think that would be the case if they had the number one scoring defense in the country, but they don't have the number one scoring defense in the country. They have the number one scoring offense in the country. And there's something about having an offense that looks explosive and can put up a lot of points that it just inspires a certain amount of confidence. Right or wrong, authentically or otherwise, it inspires a certain amount of confidence and makes you believe that in most games they're going to be able to handle their business. And when you look down the schedule, you look at the final 7 opponents that they have, you don't see a lot of dominant, intimidating defenses. Clemson is one. That's in 2 weeks, week and a half from now. Virginia Tech is pretty good on defense. By the numbers at least. I think they've been pretty solid on defense. I don't think you're too worried about North Carolina's defense. I don't think you're too worried about Virginia's defense. I don't think you're worried about Syracuse or Duke. Maybe Syracuse a little bit more than Duke, but not all that much. Miami, I think you're always concerned because of the athletes that they have. But there's something about this Pitt offense that makes you believe that they're going to do what they do against Virginia, Carolina, Syracuse, and Duke. And they're going to give you a better chance against Virginia Tech and Clemson and Miami than you might have had if you didn't have an offense that was producing like this. It inspires a certain amount of optimism. And so I think what I've been trying to figure out, and we won't know the answer to this until the games are actually played, and I think you're probably trying to figure out as well. What I'm trying to figure out is the offense for real? Can it be sustained? It's 5 games. 5 games is not a small sample size. You come out of 5 games, no matter who your opponents are, and you're averaging 52 points per game, and you're the number 1 scoring offense in the country. You're not dealing with a small sample size of 5 games. That's almost half season. Now, you've only played 1 conference game. You've only played 2 Power 5 opponents. You've only played technically 4 FBS teams, but really you've played 3 and you lost to 1 of them. But you beat both Power 5 teams, and you didn't just beat them, but you scored 40 plus on both of them. You scored 50 plus on one of them. You went to a conference opponent and won by 30. That's not, I don't know if it's sustainable or not, but I don't think it's just a fluke. I don't think the Georgia Tech game was a fluke. Scoring 77 against New Hampshire, that's scoring 77 against New Hampshire. Western Michigan, you lost, but you scored 41. Kind of what I always said 2 years ago, again, about the Miami game and the Boston College games in 2019. Miami, you give up 16 points. Boston College, you give up 26. If you hold an opponent under 30, you should have a pretty good chance of winning. If you hold an opponent under 20, you should win. You should not lose a game. If you lose a game when you held the opponent under 20 points, then that's on you. That's on the offense. That's a failure of offense. Same time, if you score more than 30, you should have a pretty good chance to win. If you score more than 40, then your defense has to blow it for you to lose, which is what happened in the Western Michigan game. And we'll talk about the defense, and we'll talk about what our concerns are there. But when we're talking about this offense and whether it's sustainable and whether they can keep doing it, sure, you want to set aside New Hampshire? Set it aside. You want to set aside UMass? Set it aside. They topped 40 at Tennessee, and that doesn't have anything to do with Tennessee's quarterback. You want to tell me that, if they started Hendon Hooker from the beginning of that game, played him whole game, maybe Pitt doesn't win. Maybe not. I don't know. What I do know is that Hendon Hooker didn't have anything to do with Pitt scoring 40 points in that game, 41 points. Joe Milton didn't have anything to do with Pitt scoring 41 points in that game. If this team's going to ride on its offense, then we need to figure out if this offense is going to be sustainable. And there's no evidence to this point that it's not. And if anything, they look to be getting stronger. They're spreading the ball around more. You're getting more guys involved. You're seeing Taysier Mack coming on after a slow start to the season. You're seeing the running game start to show up. Now, I have questions about the running game still. I'm still curious about whether or not what we've seen in the last couple of weeks is sustainable. Look, they went to Georgia Tech and ran the ball pretty well, but that was against a 3-man front. It was a different kind of defense. You play against, 4-down linemen. You play against a better run defense. I'm curious to see what you're able to do. I'm not completely sold on the running game yet, but I do believe that the offensive line is getting better. That week to week, we've seen improvements. I think they've been really good as far as protecting the quarterback. I think Pitt has given up 1.6 sacks per game, which puts them in pretty good position. Let me see here. I have that. Number 33 nationally, number 2 in the ACC in sacks allowed per game, 1.6. They're not turning the ball over. Only 5 turnovers lost so far this season. That's number 16 nationally, number 1 in the ACC. They're top 30 nationally in third down conversion. Top half of the conference in that stat too. 46%, not great, but top 30 nationally is a pretty good spot to be. And then, of course, the scoring offense and the total offense. They rank number 4 in the nation in total offense, number 1 in the nation in scoring offense. Obviously, lead the ACC in both of those categories. But is it sustainable? No, I don't think they're going to go for 500 yards and 50 points every game for the rest of the season. I also don't think they're going to have to go for 500 yards and 50 points every game for the rest of the season. I would say for the next 7 games, I would say over under 4.5 of those games that they score 40 plus. And I might bet the over on that. Actually, I would bet the over on that. I'm back and forth on whether to buy in on this offense to fully believe, yes, they're going to get it done and they're going to keep getting done. But if I set that number, all right, over under 4.5 games, the rest of the way where Pitt scores 40 or more, is it an automatic yes for you? It's going to come down to, can they score 40 plus against one of these three games here, this Virginia Tech, Clemson, or Miami. You know, I mean, the three games where defenses are probably going to be a little bit stronger than the other four games. You know, I think they should top 40 against Carolina, Virginia, Duke, and Syracuse. Can they do it against Miami, Clemson, and Virginia Tech? Miami looks like they're a bit of a mess, but they've looked like a mess in the past too. And we've seen them cause trouble for Pitt. Is this offense sustainable? A lot of thoughts to get to. And obviously a few things we need to talk about. Of course, I've got the home field shirt on and tons of questions and super chatters already bouncing in. I love to see it. But let me say this about the offense. Here's the biggest thing they've done this year. This offense has scored touchdowns in the red zone. And I wrote about this on Wednesday. We had our Inside the Numbers feature where we talked a lot about, Pitt's offense, really just kind of dug deep into the stats, both the whole offense and then individual players. And I talked a lot about it there. I talked about it on the message boards. I'm going to write about it in the 321 column on Friday. To me, this is the biggest thing because this was one of the biggest problems with this offense in the past. The past couple years, they didn't score enough touchdowns in the red zone. When you look at last season, Pitt scored 27 touchdowns in 11 games, 27 touchdowns from inside the red zone. And they ranked, I believe, number 90. Nationally in red zone touchdown percentage. All right, so the percentage of your red zone drives that end in touchdowns, Pitt was 90th in the country. This year, they've already scored 25 touchdowns from the red zone. So last year they had 27 all season. This year they have 25 already. They're fourth in the nation in red zone touchdown percentage, number one in the ACC. 80.6% of their red zone drives are ending with touchdowns. That's huge. A huge, huge stat. And it was a problem for this team last year. It really was. And you can look, if you can look at the overall stat that they just weren't good enough in the red zone. I think they were something like 50-some%. I have my stat right here. They were 57.4% on scoring touchdowns in the red zone last year. 57%. This year, they're at 80%. That's a significant difference. And you can look at specific examples like the NC State game where they drove inside the red zone. They drove inside the 10 and failed to score touchdowns and had to settle for field goals or field goal attempts. And that's a game you lose by 1 point. People have tried to talk about how the defense lost that game, gave up the game-winning touchdown drive. And it's true, the defense gave up that game-winning touchdown drive. There's no question about it. But, score a touchdown from the red zone. Just one in that game, and you win. That's the difference. If you get within 20 yards of the end zone, you need to get into the end zone. And that's what last year's offense struggled to do. And you can look back at the stats of 2019, and they struggled that year as well. And then you can look at this year, through 5 games, they've got an 80% success rate on scoring touchdowns in the red zone. And they're the 4th best team in the country at that stat. And of the 3 teams ahead of them, none have scored 25 touchdowns from the red zone. None have gotten into the red zone as much as Pitt. They've been there 31 times, and nobody's scored as many touchdowns from the red zone as Pitt. They've done it 25 times. This offense is explosive. They're scoring long touchdowns, and they're also, when they get close to the goal line, they're punching it in and finishing the drives. That's so crucial. And it's something that if you can do it, and you can do it consistently, and you're talking about now 31 red zone opportunities for Pitt, 25 red zone touchdowns over the course of 5 games. Here again, we're not talking about a small sample size anymore. For this team, for this red zone offense to fall off a cliff would be somewhat unprecedented. You're not going to go from 80% on 31 attempts through 5 games and finish around 50% or 57% like they were last year. You're not going to have that drastic a drop. Even if the numbers drop a little bit, there's no reason this team finishes outside the top 10, maybe top 15 in red zone offense, in red zone touchdown percentage. That's a huge, huge improvement. And I always thought that, well, the running game, if you could get the running game going, you're going to score better from the red zone. And they've scored. I mean, all 14 of their rushing touchdowns this season have come in the red zone. That's been a big part of it. But they've also got 11 red zone touchdown passes. And they're attacking in a lot of different ways. Lucas Krull has 5 touchdown catches this year. 4 out of those 5 have been in the red zone. Jordan Addison has caught 3 red zone touchdowns, spreading the ball around. Melky Stovall gets one. I feel like somebody else, maybe Shaki Jacques-Louis, got a red zone touchdown. Kenny Pickett's running for touchdowns, and Nick Patty and Daniel Carter caught a touchdown pass there at Georgia Tech, a couple yards out. They're so much more effective at the red zone, or scoring touchdowns from the red zone, that when I look at that stat, you can break down little stats here and there. You can break down the passing offense stat, or the total offense stat, or rushing offense, or third downs, or pass yards per completion, which Pitt is number 2 in the ACC in passing yards per completion. You get total offense, scoring offense, and all those things. And to me, if I'm going to pick one stat that I think really indicates the effectiveness of an offense beyond just scoring offense, which I think is the number one that's the supreme stat. But if I could pick one, to me, it's the red zone touchdown percentage, particularly if you have a high volume of red zone opportunities like Pitt does, because you're getting there and then you're finishing the drive. Last year's team didn't finish drives. 2019 team didn't finish drives. And when you lose the close games like they've lost, it's probably, I would bet every game that they've lost by one score over the last 5 years, you could go back and find in each of those games a red zone opportunity that didn't result in a touchdown. I would almost guarantee it, right? Whether it's Miami in 2019, the Boston College game that year, I bet you could go through a bunch of those North Carolina games. You could find red zone opportunities where they either settled for a field goal or settled for a field goal attempt or got pushed back out of the red zone, ended up having to punt, or some nonsense that happened that wasn't a touchdown. This year, they're finishing the drives. And if they continue to finish the drives, they're going to continue to score at a high rate. And if they continue to score at a high rate, they're going to continue to win games. I didn't even say the name of the show when we started. We're 20 minutes into this gig here on a Wednesday night. And I didn't even tell you this is the Panther-Lair Show. I'm Chris Peak from Panther-Lair.com. I presume if you are tuning into this show here on a Wednesday night, or you are, listening to the podcast through the week or whatever it is, I presume that you have, you are a Pitt fan, in which case you should be aware of Panther-Lair.com. It's Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. It's the most comprehensive source of Pitt sports news on the internet, football, basketball, recruiting, and of course, message boards. And the message boards are buzzing. The boys are buzzing out there, let me tell you. They are fired up talking about what's going on with this Pitt team. And there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of concern. There's a lot of, agitation and anxiety about the possibility of what could happen here over the next 7 games for this Pitt team, where everything is laid out in front of them and the opportunities are theirs. They truly do control their own destiny, and they look like a team that's capable of taking control of that destiny. Maybe more than teams we've seen in the past. And we'll talk about teams that take advantage of their, take control of their destiny in a second, because there have been some Pitt teams that have done it. There's at least one I can think of. We'll talk about that. But that's where Pitt fans are talking about what's going on in Pitt sports and what it's like to be a Pitt fan right now. And it's only going to get more interesting, I think, here as we approach the weekend, get through the weekend, and move on from there. Win or lose, it's going to be interesting, and you're going to want to talk about it. The place to do that is at Panther-Lair.com. Of course, home field, our guys, apparel.com. You can check out, I've got the warm up the Victory Light shirt on. It's a nice yellow. And more importantly, to me, it's very soft. It's very comfortable. It's very cozy. What I always say about home field, I'm a big t-shirt guy. I'm a big fan of t-shirts. My wife doesn't like how much I like t-shirts, and I don't know if that inspires me to like it even more, quite possibly. But look, I wear t-shirts all the time. I work from home for a Pitt sports website. T-shirts are pretty much my uniform. And the thing is about t-shirts, you want them to look cool. You want cool designs, which, I mean, Home Field obviously has nailed that. But you also want a really soft, comfortable t-shirt. It's going to hold its shape, going to hold its size. You can wash it, dry it, and all those things, which I highly recommend. And it's still going to fit you the way you want it to fit. And Home Field has nailed it on both accounts. Great design, looks awesome, and it's a super comfortable, high-quality shirt. Go check them out, homefieldapparel.com. Look at their Pitt collection. And if you're a first-time shopper at homefieldapparel.com, use the promo code LAIR, L-A-I-R, and you can get 15% off your order. So you get some of the best stuff you're going to find, some of the best Pitt shirts you're going to buy, t-shirts, sweatshirts, whatever you like, and you're going to get it on a high-quality product, and you can get a discount, 15%, promo code LAIR. Our unofficial beer of the podcast is Aurochs. Getting into the fall spirit on a night when it's 60, 70 degrees out there with their pumpkin ale. It's great stuff. If you're into gluten-free beer, I highly recommend it. All right, let's jump into the comments and questions here. Best thing about doing this the live stream on Wednesday nights is you can get into the chat screen and ask questions and post comments, reactions to things I'm saying, questions you have, and we can have kind of a conversation. It's interactive. We go back and forth. That's what I like about it. I do the Panthers Insider Show on 93.7 The Fan on Saturday mornings. We don't really take calls on that show. I just kind of talk for an hour. It's fine. It's fun. But I like this where we can interact and chat. And you could be a super chatter by clicking that little $ sign at the bottom. Throw a couple bucks to the podcast. We very much appreciate your support. And if you do that, we'll definitely get to your comments and questions. And John Bridgen jumps in as a super chatter right off the bat, says, thanks for helping fill the time between games with the great Pitt content on the Lair with the 2 YouTube shows. Hey, thanks to you, John. I appreciate it. If you John mentions the 2 YouTube shows. We have this show, obviously, the Panther-Lair Show. We do our post-game show also, but then we've got the Kenny Pickett Show. And like I said, we took a week off from the Kenny Pickett Show last week for the off week, gave Kenny a break. He was, he was just trying to, catch up on a little bit of rest. I think relax a little bit. It's been a pretty long stretch of 5 weeks, but, we got back with him, had a new episode, came out today. It's right here on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. And I thought it was great. I thought it was a great conversation. We talked to Kenny about a lot of different things. We even asked him, what do you think of bubble screens? Because I know Pitt fans hate bubble screens, and you complain about it all the time. But check out Kenny's answer, because he actually broke it down in a way that he basically said they're essential to the offense. And he could think of plays off the top of his head that hit because the defense had to account for the bubble screen. And the fact is, I think he kind of touched on this as well, and I believe him, and I agree with him. When the athletes that they have on this team, whether it's Jordan Addison, it's Jalen Barden, even, Shockey Jacques Louis, with some of these guys, if the defense doesn't account for them on a screen, if they don't sort of prepare for it or shade toward it a little bit, they're going to hit a couple of those plays too. They're going to hit a long screen pass. And so it's almost worth having a few of those that don't pick up anything. If it gets the defense shaded that way and it allows you to hit something else, and then if the defense has to readjust, then you hit on one of those screens and they actually go for a big gain. But anyway, Kenny explained it much better than I did, much better than I could, because he's a lot smarter than I am when it comes to talking about football. And he's also smarter when he's talking about pork rolls and Taylor ham and Central Jersey. I learned a lot about New Jersey on this week's Kenny Pickett Show. So go check that out, and we talked about a lot of stuff, but some great conversations about halftime adjustments. Are they a real thing? How much can you really do at halftime? And even though Kenny's an offensive guy, I asked him, how much can you even really expect a defense to do? Coming out from your perspective as an offensive guy, how much can you expect the defense to do at halftime? How many changes can they realistically make? Some interesting stuff, but it's always interesting, I think, on the Kenny Pickett Show, because he's an interesting guy. And look, we're following a guy in a really significant year in his career. Kenny's final season at Pitt. He's having the best year of his career through 5 games, and you can hear from him every week on the Kenny Pickett Show. It's the only place you're going to hear from him every week. Sometimes he goes out and talks to the media, like sort of a general media scrum on Wednesdays, I guess it is. But we've got him every week on the Kenny Pickett Show. So subscribe to our YouTube channel. Keep an eye on Panther-Lair.com, and you can keep up on it. Tim Fairley, another super chatter. We appreciate it, Tim. He says, no question, just a thanks for asking Kenny my questions about pork rolls. The family got a kick out of it. Yeah, Tim's question was, as a New Jersey guy, what do you call it, a pork roll or Taylor ham? And apparently, they're the same thing. And apparently, they started out being called Taylor ham, and in like 1898 or 1906 or something like that, and the FDA said, no, you can't call that ham because it doesn't fit our definition of what ham is. What you made is just a lunch meat. I'm serious. Somebody tweeted this link to me. It was actually I think a parent of a player sent me the link to the history of pork rolls and Taylor ham. Now I know, but Kenny claims it's always been a pork roll. So I just know I like the Ween song pork roll, egg, and cheese. So when I was in New Jersey 10 or 12 years ago, I ordered a pork roll with egg and cheese. Joe News says, another super chatter here. He says, I'm not worried about the defense or special teams or even the offense. It's coaching that worries me. Pounder Newsy, no twitchy brain and 3% more charisma than Paul Christ. So I'm not sure what you mean about no twitchy brain or about the charisma. He follows up and he says, bad game day decisions. Well, look, I'll tell you this. Game day decisions, all right, like the crucial decisions, punt or go for it, when to use a timeout, those kinds of decisions really matter when you're in a close game. Those kinds of decisions will come back to bite you and haunt you if you're in a game that comes down to a one-score affair, and particularly if you come up on the losing end of it. So my advice is don't even make those decisions matter. Keep scoring. And I think, you could talk about coaching, and I would say this. I believe that Pat Narduzzi and Mark Whipple are committed to scoring as many friggin' points as they can. And to me, I think that's the best way to avoid having to worry about when you call timeouts or when you go for it on 4th down or when you punt or when you go for 2 or any of those things. Anything that's going to take an analytical mind, making a quick decision, processing as much available information as possible and making a calm, rational decision in the span of about 10 to 12 seconds. Take all of those elements out of the game by just scoring a lot. And you stay ahead of it. I mean, seriously, that's this team's best chance. Just keep scoring, and make it so you don't even have to worry about those decisions. Honestly, that's my best advice for. I know, just keep scoring, huh? Real genius. Look, you don't have to worry about whether you burned your timeouts if you've got a 3-touchdown lead. You don't have to worry about whether you should go for it or punt or kick a field goal if you've got a 3-touchdown lead. You don't have to worry about if you need to go for 2 or if you should do this or you should do that if you've got a 3-touchdown lead, right? Keep it simple. Keep scoring. All right. Let's get into some of the comments and questions. Brock Madonic says, I know I'm about a month late, but anything to make of Marquand Pope visiting Kansas State and Texas Tech. Also saw Camden Brown picked up a West Virginia offer yesterday. Yeah, you're going to have this on the recruiting front when you get all these commitments in July or in June, like Pitt has the last 3 years, 4 years, however long it's been since they started having the June official visits. Guys are going to commit early. A lot of guys are going to commit early. And then some of them are going to go out and take visits. And Ryland Gandy went out and visited Missouri when they got trounced by Tennessee. Marquand Pope you mentioned, or Camden Brown picked. Apologize if we're having some connectivity issues. Let's see. We got it back. All right, are we back on? I apologize about that. Yeah. Thanks, Rolo Brown Town Tony, telling me we're good now. I apologize that we were buffering. No, I mean, recruits are going to take visits. I mean, when you get so many commitments early, it's just sort of inevitable that you're going to have a percentage that are going to take visits and go check out other schools, and you're going to lose a couple guys. I mean, you're going to have a few commitments who back off. And I think you just know that going in, and I think you probably take that as sort of a caveat when they get commitments in June. They're like, well, some of these guys aren't going to make it all the way to December. It's, you sit down, if you could line up all the all the commitments in a row, from June, and have them, turn to your left, and, look at the person to your right, and one of the two people you just saw won't be signing with Pitt in December or something like that. I mean, it's just kind of part of what it is. It's just what it is. Sports World PA says, my prediction video, I have Pitt winning by 14. At Virginia Tech, it's tough. I think Virginia Tech is a bigger challenge than Georgia Tech was. Kenny Pickett said that Virginia Tech Lane Stadium is the loudest college environment he's ever played in. And I think he's actually really pumped up to try to get a win there. If you remember, I mean, that's really where the Kenny Pickett saga started, was in Blacksburg. If you go back to the 2017 game, Pickett came in, replaced Ben DiNucci in the second quarter. And it was interesting because going into that game, that was the plan. DiNucci was going to start, and Pickett would come in at the start of the first drive of the second quarter. He would come in and then, probably have a quarter or so, and then they would see how it went from there. And I remember that. I'd heard that before the game, that was the plan. And I remember they were going through the first quarter, and I think right near the end of the first quarter, DiNucci threw a touchdown pass. And I just remember thinking, oh, geez, DiNucci's playing really well. Are they really going to bench him for Pickett and follow this plan? They had this plan, but DiNucci just threw a touchdown pass. Are they going to pull him and put in Kenny Pickett? And sure enough, they did. And Pickett has never looked back. I mean, he started, he played those final three quarters that week. He obviously started and won the game against Miami in the season finale a week later. And he started every game that he's been healthy since then. And that's really where the saga started. Of course, he goes back in 2019 as the starter. Pitt loses 28-0. It's an ugly day. It's an ugly game. It was just kind of a miserable experience. I think Kenny, and we kind of talked about it a little bit on the Kenny Pickett show, that I think he's really pumped up. He's excited to go down there with an opportunity to get a win. I think he wants to. I'm trying to think. He said something to the effect on the show, and you'll have to check it out, that when he came back, there were a few goals he wanted to accomplish, and one of them was getting a win down there. I don't know if it was the reason he came back. I don't know if he will go that far, but once he decided to come back, he probably looked down a list and said, all right, here's the things I want to do. Obviously, win the Coastal, win the ACC and all that. Winning at Lane Stadium, beating Virginia Tech on the road is a big one for Kenny, and I think it'll mean a lot to him if they're able to pull it off. Josh Newark says, can you elaborate on your tweet on elusive rating? How is this objectively measured, and is it a legit stat for running backs? So elusive rating is, if you look at Pro Football Focus, and I draw a lot of stats from Pro Football Focus, elusive rating, and I'll find their exact definition of it, is a stat. I call it a proprietary stat. It's a Pro Football Focus signature stat that, quote, measures success and impact of a runner with the ball independent of blocking. So I don't know exactly their formula behind it. I don't know how they calculate it, but they use it. They use whatever information they can to try to sort of isolate the running back from his blocking and say, what do you actually make happen on your own? What yards are you getting there, not just the product of good, effective blocking? And so I took that stat and I sorted it for running backs who have at least 30 carries nationally. And among those 30, among all the running backs who have carried the ball at least 30 times through week 6, Rodney Hammond, his elusive rating is 214.7, which ranks 6th among all running backs in the country with at least 30 carries this season. Now, that is a case where it's a small sample size. I mean, Hammond, obviously, only 30 carries. A bunch of those carries came against New Hampshire. We'll see what it is as the season goes on. But he's another guy who I think looks like he keeps getting better and better week after week. And I think he is going to contribute to this team. He's not going to redshirt. Mark Whipple said that on Tuesday that he's not going to redshirt, but I don't think we needed Whipple to clarify that. He's not going to redshirt. He's going to play all season, and I think he's going to be a big part of this offense, along with Izzy Abanikanda and along with Vincent Davis. I mean, I think all those guys are going to be in the mix, and when A.J. Davis gets healthy, he'll probably be in there to some extent. But, I mean, even the coaches have to realize, and I think they do, that Abanikanda, Hammond, and Vincent Davis, in some order, are their best options. They're the top three guys because they're the ones who I think have done the most and have the potential to do the most. But, yeah, that's what that stat was. Josh, Pro Football Focus can answer how they arrive at that stat, but that's how they define it, and that is that's where Rodney Hammond ranks. Will Z says, I don't know if I can truly buy into a Pitt team until they really play a complete game against a Virginia Tech, Clemson, North Carolina type of team, and they don't lose a gimme trap game, Miami or Duke. Next few games are big. I mean, Will, it kind of sounds like what you're saying is you can't buy into Pitt until they finish the season without blowing too many games. I mean, you listed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of their final 7 games. So you only left out Syracuse and Virginia. I don't know how they fit into the matrix there, but look, I can understand waiting to see. I think the most likely scenario is that at some point their defense gives up more than they can score. I mean, like the Western Michigan game, or the defense gives up a little bit too much and the offense just stumbles once or twice. You don't want to be in a position where the offense has to score a touchdown on every possession because you're giving up almost a touchdown on every possession. You don't want to be in that situation. You don't want to have that much pressure on the offense. I thought one thing in the Georgia Tech game, and I think we talked about this after the game, they only scored, and I talked to Kenny Pickett about it as well, they only scored like 10 points in the second half at Georgia Tech. But their drives were like an 8-minute drive to close the game, a couple of 4-minute drives, and maybe like a quick touchdown drive, like a 90-second touchdown drive or something like that. So they were able to like actually run out the clock, eat up a lot of clock, and run out the clock. That's something they might want to look at a little bit more. It's tough because you want to, if you have the opportunity to push it and score, you want to keep doing that, particularly in the first half. Once you get into the second half, you don't want to take your foot off the gas too much. You don't want to let up too much because you don't want to give the other team an opportunity to get back in it. And so you need to keep scoring. And even when you get into the fourth quarter, you want to keep scoring. But if there's an opportunity to eat clock and ideally still finish with points, I mean, that's maybe the next step for this offense is becoming an offense that can sort of pick and choose when it wants to sort of be explosive and attack, and then also when it wants to eat clock, and really kind of grind and win the time of possession. If they can get to that point, and it's probably going to depend on the development of the running game, but if they can get to that point where they can really almost sort of pick and choose on each drive what they're going to do and really and still be able to pull it off pretty consistently, they'll be hard to stop, and they'll win a lot of games. Sports World PA says, I've been watching this channel since last year and it inspired me to make my channel, hoping to be the Panther-Lair one day. Hey, man. If you want to be the Panther-Lair one day, go for it. I'm good with that. There should be another one someday. And then Sports World follows up and says, the hardest part is getting interviews and press passes. I've learned quickly. That's as a quick aside, if you're trying to get press passes, I mean, you have to establish yourself. And that can be hard to do without official interviews. That can be hard to do without access to the team. But you need to establish yourself as something of a legitimate reporting source. Take it seriously. Present yourself professionally. And you know what? Try to reach out to some of the people at Pitt in the sports information department, try to set up some meetings and explain what you're doing, why you're trying to do it, and what you hope to accomplish, and how they can help you, and how you'll conduct yourself. And I think they're pretty reasonable there. If they believe that you've got genuine interest, you're not just trying to be a fan, trying to score free tickets and sit in the press box, but you really want to produce content, legitimate coverage, I think they can be pretty reasonable about it. But it's, you have to have the right approach, I think. Some guy named Jim Hammett says, hey, I finally got around to subscribing to the channel. I mean, thanks, Jim. You only have, admin logins and you upload videos to the channel. I would think you should subscribe to it every now and then. I mean, Josh Newark says the weather might factor into the over regarding offensive points. I said about, I was kind of talking about, you look at these last 7 games, you go over or under 4.5 games with 40 plus points. You know what I mean? You say are they going to score 40 plus in 4 or fewer or 5 or more? And, Rollo Brown Town Tony says over for sure. Josh Newark says the weather might factor into the over on that. And the over is something to keep an eye on. You never know. Or the weather is something to keep an eye on. I mean, that's been a problem. That was a problem 2 years ago at Virginia Tech. It was a big mess. Brock Madonic says, what has helped has been Taysier Mack having a resurgent season and a good tight end in this offense. The run game has seemed to improve week to week. Yeah, Taysier Mack has really, he was off to a slow start, but he's come on, and he's been really good. Just kind of looking at the stats here, he's caught 16 out of 25 targets for 304 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 9 first downs. He's only got 1 drop. He's the thing Taysier Mack can do, and I've been saying this for like 3 years. I've been saying this since his first season. I think his first season was 2018. So I've been saying it since then. And we haven't always seen it because I think he's not always been healthy. But when he's healthy, he is their best receiver at going down the field and making contested catches. If there's going to be a contested catch, if you're going to throw a jump ball, you're going to throw it up there and let somebody go up and get it. The guy who has done that the best over the last 3 years has been Taysier Mack when he's healthy. And he appears to be healthy now, and he's making those catches. And he's doing a great job at it. It's a huge, huge weapon, no question. And then you throw in the tight end. The tight ends have just been outstanding. Lucas Krull has been everything we expected him to be when he transferred from Florida last year. He's caught 15 out of 20 targets for 193, 5 touchdowns, and 8 first downs. He's tied for first among Power 5 tight ends in touchdowns this season. And the guy he's tied with is the tight end at Alabama, who's played 6 games, and Lucas Krull has only played 5. He's been as good as advertised. And then, of course, Gavin Bartholomew has been really good. He's Mr. 9 targets, 9 receptions, 99 yards. And he's got 5 first downs on those 99 or 5 first downs on those 9 receptions. He's been so good in this offense, and that gives you optimism for the future. And I think the other guys they brought in, Jake Renda and Cole Mitchell, were pretty good too. Bartholomew's the best, but the other guys are pretty outstanding players. Or I think they have the potential to be pretty good. So you get Lucas Krull this year. He's obviously impacted the offense in a positive way. And then you would say once he's gone next year, Bartholomew should step in and be the number 1 tight end on this team and a pretty good weapon as well. Let's see here. Samuel Scalzo follows up with almost the exact same thing. Thank goodness for those tight ends. They really, in my opinion, the difference this year between, other than Kenny Pickett coming back. I think you're absolutely right. I think those guys have made a huge impact. But you also, like, the tight ends have been great, and I think they've made a significant impact on this offense. Jordan Addison taking the next step as a sophomore has been huge. Because he is he's been outstanding. He was really good last year. He's legitimately one of the best receivers in the country right now. Legitimately. And you could say that when Tyler Boyd was here. You could say that when, to some extent, Jonathan Baldwin was here. Obviously, you could say that with Larry Fitzgerald and Antonio Bryant. But, Addison is playing his way into that conversation. He's putting his name alongside names like Boyd. Boyd never had 9 touchdown receptions in a season. He was playing on Paul Christ's offense. They didn't, although his last year he played with Jim Chaney, but he never had more than 8 touchdown receptions in a season. But he's playing on the Tyler Boyd, Antonio Bryant level. I'm not going to put him on the Larry Fitzgerald level because Jerry Rice is on that level, and that's it. I mean, Larry stands alone. Nobody matches that. But yeah, I'll put Addison right up there with Boyd, and I'll put Addison right up there with Antonio Bryant, who is outstanding. We sometimes forget how good he was because it was a long time ago, maybe because Larry Fitzgerald came right after him. But he was a great receiver at Pitt. Tyler Boyd was a great receiver at Pitt. Jordan Addison is a great receiver at Pitt. I'd put him above Jonathan Baldwin. And Baldwin went on to be a first-round draft pick, which had as much to do with measurables as it did with production and play. But, I mean, Addison is at that level, which has been absolutely huge. Josh Newark says this year's offensive success is because of multiple factors. Kenny is more accurate. The O-line is keeping a clean pocket, less wide receiver drops, very few turnovers, 2 legit tight ends. Yeah, and on the matter of drops, Jordan Addison, according to Pro Football Focus, Jordan Addison's been charged with 4. Vincent Davis has 2. And then Taysir Mack, Lucas Krull, Shockey Jacques Louis, Jalen Barden, and Roddy Hammond have 1 each. Nobody else is charged with a drop. Jared Wayne, Izzy Abanikanda, Gavin Bartholomew, Melky Stovall, Jaden Bradley, AJ Davis, Trey Tipton, John Bardzell, Daniel Carter all have at least 1 target and no drops. I think that's been a big part of it. But you know what? You talk about Kenny Pickett being more accurate. I don't like there may be more accuracy on his passes. He may be doing a better job on deep passes. He may be putting a little better touch on some of the intermediate stuff. I really think the biggest thing with Kenny Pickett, and none of this happens in a vacuum, but I really think the biggest thing with Kenny Pickett is his pocket presence and his awareness. And I think when you looked in the last few years, and I sort of assumed that this just was who he was. I think I said coming into the season, we sort of know who Kenny Pickett is. And by which I mean, I think when you look at the last few years, he wasn't great at feeling the pressure. He wasn't great at responding to the pressure. There were too many times last year and in 2019 where he would escape the pocket before he needed to. The pressure was coming, but it wasn't there yet. He had a little more time to hang in there. And this year, partially due to the offensive line's play, because they're giving him more time, they're not letting as much pressure through, but partially, I think, due to growth and development and maturity on his part, he just seems to be hanging in the pocket better. And I think that's translating to better accuracy, better touch, better deep passes. He's more comfortable in the pocket than he's ever been. And I think you can watch that. I'm sure if I asked him, and I might have asked him on a Kenny Pickett show at some point this year, I'm sure if I asked him, he would say it's true. I think you can see it on television. Never mind at the game or talking to him. I think you can see it on television that he just looks more comfortable in the pocket than ever before in his career. At any point, he has not looked this consistently comfortable over the course of 5 games as he has so far this season. He's just comfortable back there, and I think he's able to pick defenses apart, or he has been able to pick defenses apart because of how comfortable he is in the pocket. And I chalk that up to his awareness, and I chalk that up to his development and growth. I think that's a big, big factor. Let's see here. Josh Newark, I love it, says, I have no fear. Pitt runs the table, 11-1. And then Josh follows up. It says that if I would have teased out that I spent part of the Kenny Pickett show crapping on the boss, imagine the views or the hate coming from New Jersey. Look, I didn't crap on the boss. I asked Kenny Pickett, he's from Oakhurst. Oakhurst is close to Asbury Park. I asked Kenny Pickett if he listens to Bruce Springsteen. He said, yeah, if he's at family picnics, he'll put it on and he'll play it all the time and all this stuff. I just casually, before we moved on to the next subject, mentioned that Bruce Springsteen is overrated. That's all. That's all I said. I didn't crap on the boss. That's all I said. Let's see. Tyler Buchanan says, all right, Chris, you talked me into a t-shirt. Home field, baby. Apparel.com. If you're a first-time shopper, promo code LAIR, L-A-I-R. Get a discount. Get the discount. MTTT says the Virginia Tech media seems to think they have almost no chance in this game. Should we be feeling really good about this one? Well, look, so it depends on how much confidence you have in this offense sustaining the success that they've had. And that's what it comes down to. And I think each week, if they continue performing like this, you can have more and more success or more and more confidence about the overall team. You know, going into this game, should Pitt fans be feeling really good about this game? I think your team right now has the number one scoring offense in the country. I think they're 4-1. I think they just went on the road against a conference opponent, not a bottom feeder in the conference, not the best team in the conference, a middle of the road conference opponent on the road, and hung 52 on them and beat them by 30. I think your quarterback right now is one of the top quarterbacks in the country. I think your wide receiver right now is tied for the lead in receiving touchdowns. I think your tight end is tied for the lead among Power 5 tight ends with receiving touchdowns. I think there are a lot of reasons for you to feel optimistic about this team. I think your defense right now sort of feels kind of feast or famine. And they're either going to get a sack or they're going to give up a passing play. That's a work in progress. You know, if you want to have consternation, you want to be concerned, you want to be anxious about something, be anxious about the defense. And wait for them to show you that they are, up to the task. But should you feel good about this one? Yeah, I mean, I think so. Your team's 4-1. You know, you just had a pretty good performance. The last time they were on the field, they had a pretty good performance against a conference opponent on the road. This is a different challenge. It's going to be more challenging in Blacksburg. But I'm at a point now after 5 games, I'll bet on Kenny Pickett, until he proves otherwise. Will Z says, question, Chris, my older friends are wondering, will you ever have a call-in show on The Fan? It's an interesting trip trying to get old folks to use YouTube and comment. Yeah, we'll get something on there. We'll see here. Wait, where did that go? Lost your question, Will. Yeah, The Fan, we'll get back to a point where we take calls. We're not taking calls right now, just to a few different logistical issues. But we'll get to a point where we take calls. It's always fun to take calls on The Fan. I mean, I really enjoy these live streams. I enjoy the chats and everything like that. But it's fun getting people on the phone and talking, and somebody says something and I say, what are you talking about? That's good. That's bad. And then, we go back and forth. It's entertaining. So yeah, we'll get back to that at some point for sure. Jeremy Horn says, what do you think is our weakness on defense at the moment? I see good players at a lot of positions, but we bleed points. Well, I mean, I think there's a couple of things. I do think they need to be a little more consistent in getting pressure on the quarterback. I think they've gotten better at that. I know they're putting up decent sack numbers. I think they could do a better job at consistently getting pressure on the quarterback and making the quarterback uncomfortable, not giving him time to execute some of those passing plays that have been hitting against Pitt. I think they also need their linebackers to play better, better understanding of assignments and roles and responsibilities, not to bite on play action and RPOs quite as hard as they have. I think they need the whole defense to tackle better than they've been tackling. I think they need the safeties to cover better. You know what I mean? I think they need the safeties to play at a higher level than they have. So, I mean, I think there are issues at all 3 levels of the defense. I think those guys have gotten better. I think they'll continue to get better. I think it'll be a steady progression through the course of the season, but there are going to be frustrating times where they give up plays, and they might give up plays early in a game, and you'll be like, oh, geez, here we go. And then they'll lock things down for a little bit. I think that could, I think there's progress that could be made, but they're not there yet. Brock Madonic says, Chris, what do you make of Packer and Durham? I guess you could say criticizing the AP poll voters and Johnny McGonigal for not voting for Pitt and only receiving 1 vote. Will Z actually responds to that and says, in Johnny's defense, he did say he will rank them if they win this weekend against Virginia Tech. Can't blame him after the Western Michigan game, to be honest. Yeah, I think I'm fine with Pitt not being ranked this week. I think everybody's excited about all the points they're putting up. I think the computers smile look very favorably on them, but they've got a loss to Western Michigan. That win at Tennessee keeps looking a little bit better and better as Tennessee is sort of stacking up a couple wins. They beat, Missouri 2 weeks ago on the road. They beat South Carolina this past weekend by a lot. Both games they won by a lot. The Tennessee win looks a little bit better, although there's the whole quarterback thing. But they lost to Western Michigan. And so you've got 2 Power 5 wins. Basically 2 FBS wins. But, as with the Coastal Division, the ACC, and all these things that are laid out in front of them, Pitt really controls its destiny. And if they keep winning, they'll be ranked. If they beat Virginia Tech, they'll be in the top 25. I'm almost 100% positive on that. I know they only got 1 vote this week in the AP, but I think they will. I think if they look good, if they play well at Virginia Tech and win this game, I think they can make a big jump and end up in the top 25, in next week's poll. 1-2 says, Springsteen overrated. OMG, his outtakes would be career highlights for most. I'm sick to my stomach after hearing that madness. Sorry, man. I didn't say I don't like him. I just don't like him as much as some people. Some people go gaga for him. Some people go nuts. Look, I love the Grateful Dead. I understand that a lot of people think they're overrated or don't get into them. Everybody's got their own personal taste, I like a yellow t-shirt like this one from apparel.com. If you like this yellow t-shirt or any of the other sweet shirts that they have and you're a first-time buyer there, first-time shopper, you can get 15% off. The promo code LAIR. It's a high-quality shirt, great designs, and I think we can all agree on this. There's nothing overrated about this shirt right here. This is the anti-Springsteen of t-shirts. I shouldn't say that because people, there are some really, really hardcore Springsteen fans out there who are going to be mad about that. But look, homefieldapparel.com. Go get yourself some sweet Pitt gear, and if it's your first time shopping there, promo code LAIR. Get 15% off. Don't forget the website, Panther-Lair.com, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. It's the most comprehensive source of Pitt sports news on the internet. I think we got a lot of great content this week. Football, basketball stuff, recruiting stuff, and the message boards are just bumping because there's a lot going on with Pitt right now. There's a lot of hype, and there's a lot of expectations, and there's a lot of excitement, and Pitt fans are pumped up about it. And they're talking about it at Panther-Lair.com. You probably have Pitt fan friends. You have people you talk to about the games, you watch the games with. But look, there are hundreds and thousands of Pitt fans on the message boards at Panther-Lair.com. So go hang out there. It's literally all day, every day. It's 9:30 here on a Wednesday night. I'll check the board before I go to bed tonight. When I get up in the morning and check it again, there'll be lots of new posts and threads and comments and reactions and replies to dig into. Because it's going on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. While you're there, or while you're here, I should say, on the YouTube channel, check out the Kenny Pickett Show. And, of course, also, look, I think everybody who watches this live stream is probably subscribed to our YouTube channel. If not, you really should. There's a button right over... it's right down there. I'm kind of pointing at it. It's if you can see it. You click that, you will subscribe to the YouTube channel, okay? That way, you'll never miss any of our live streams. So we're going to go live after this Virginia Tech game on Saturday. Game kicks off at 3:30. Let's say it ends around 7. Between 7 and 7:30, we'll probably go live around 7:30 on Saturday night for a post-game show, the Panther-Lair post-game, to talk about the game afterward. But I don't know an exact time. I won't know an exact time until the game ends. But you won't miss it if you subscribe to our YouTube channel and get notifications. You'll get a little thing that pops up on your phone. Hey, Panther-Lair's about to start talking about this game. Get on there so you can join the conversation. Believe me, the post-game shows are always a ton of fun. And so you should definitely come and hang out for that. But a good way to make sure you don't miss it is by clicking subscribing to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com, and you can hang out. You'll always know when we post a new video, when a new Kenny Pickett show goes live, and when we go live for either a Panther-Lair Show on Wednesday nights or the post game on Saturdays after the games. Or maybe, are we going to do one after the North Carolina game on a Thursday night? Should we have like a 1 a.m. Panther-Lair post-game show? I don't know. That might be tough. That might be tough. Although, depending on the game, we might have to. All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining in here on the live stream. I really appreciate it. It's fun to chat with you guys. I apologize if I missed your comments or questions. Remember, you can always be a super chatter to make sure your comments and questions get read on the air, as it were. Thanks, everybody who listens to the podcast through the week. If you want to come and hang out Wednesday nights, every Wednesday night at 8:30, we've got it right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. So thanks again to everybody who tuned in. We appreciate it. Have a great rest of the week. Enjoy the game on Saturday, whatever it's going to be. And we will talk to you after the game.